What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's time for a post-show for the WWE NXT TakeOver Toronto 2019 event that just went down. We're going to give you our first impressions, our overall thoughts of what just happened, give you the results, recap everything that we need to talk about, and all the other kind of stuff that we normally do on the review side of things. We invite you to do the same thing in the comments section below. We are Tony Mango, Callum DeFelice. Wow, I almost merged you two. Callum Wiggins and Robert DeFelice.
Do not tarnish my good name with this.
We got Callum DeFelice and Robert Wiggins.
I think Robert Wiggins would be easier to spell it. I think people would get the hang of that more, but...
Well, you'd definitely be the wife in the relationship as well, so that would make sense.
It's the first night. Why am I this tired? What the hell? We still got all of SummerSlam tomorrow to go through.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that's something to start off with in a certain way. We have 5 matches to talk about here. One of them is that we eventually got confirmation that we did not get the breakout tournament final in any capacity. That happened in the tapings that happened before this. They usually do something prior to TakeOver, and they took care of that match and another one that'll be airing a little bit later on. So if you don't want to know the spoiler of who wins that, then skip about a couple of minutes from down. I don't know what time code is. We're recording it as we're going, so whatever. The winner for that ended up being Jordan Miles. So when we were talking about that before, that seems to make sense towards at least the idea that he seems like an easy guy that you can give a championship match to, and he can lose, because I don't think that they would just make him a new champion. And I'm assuming at this point that he goes for Adam Cole. What do you guys think? We're going to get something slightly different where he faces like Velveteen Dream or something?
I'd probably put him against the Velveteen Dream. I think the breakout tournament was a bit of a botch in the sense that I think Isaiah Scott has so much charisma and should have been in the finals. I think Angel Garza has so much charisma. Like there's so many people that I could see being stars, and Jordan Miles just isn't one of them. I think he's a great ladder match guy. I think he's a good spot guy, but for me, he's not the breakout star that I would build around.
Yeah, I find it legitimately hard to care who he challenges the title, because it's not going to mean anything, and if it does, then it's a big mistake.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out next Wednesday when they actually air that match and the other match that, I'm not going to spoil everything. What the hell? So instead, we had our pre-show, and I, to be perfectly honest, missed the majority of it. I forgot that it was 6:30 is when they start, because this is too hard to keep track of, because didn't we used to get these that started at 7:30 and then they started at 7 was the pre-show? Now the pre-shows are at 6:30?
Because the show starts at 7.
That threw me off, because I had 7 in my notes, and normally I write down what the kickoff is, and this time around, I guess that just kind of flew over my head or whatever. So did I miss anything, or did absolutely anything happen?
You missed absolutely nothing except for, Regal unveils the third stipulation, but I think you were watching by that point.
I mean, it didn't seem like there would be anything that would happen based off of previous TakeOver pre-shows. They normally don't have a match. They normally just have, Pat McAfee talks to Charlie Caruso and
Sam Roberts,
and they just kind of, run down the card and do that pretty quickly, which, if anything,
that's exactly what they did.
That's what the pre-show is supposed to be technically about, so, okay. Yeah.
I also really noticed that it's called the pre-show for NXT because there was a recent edict handed down that Vince does not want the WWE pre-shows called pre-shows. It has to be the kickoff. So I found it funny that I really noticed that, on NXT, it is the pre-show.
Because it's the semantics behind these kind of things sometimes make sense, and sometimes it's pretty annoying, but it's a pre-show. The kickoff thing, people don't watch it, and they've been calling it the kickoff for a long enough time that it hasn't changed any perception. I don't know a single person that is a casual fan that looks at that pre-show kickoff thing and thinks to themselves, "Oh, well, it's a kickoff. I gotta be there for that." Everybody just goes, that's pre-show. I don't need to watch that shit. Even for something like tomorrow, guarantee I'm going to be hanging out in the basement, and it's going to be me, Dace, and like one or two other people before a bunch of other people come in, because they'll just be like, I don't need to watch the first 2 hours. Then they'll just come in, they'll say, what did I miss? And it'll be matches that they don't necessarily care about because nobody watches 205 Live. And then they'll move on, you know. In this pre-show, if it's not going to match on it, it's totally a pre-show. So that makes sense. And once they go to FS1, then they'll change that around and it'll go back to the way that Raw and SmackDown are.
No.
Depressing. But the card started off with this video package, because we went from a video package on the pre-show leading up to that to the start of this being footage of people watching a video package. The hell was that?
Yeah, I really thought Slipknot was performing live because of the way that they shot this. I don't know why they did it like that.
Yeah, it was a little odd. Can't say it was like terrible, but it seemed quite unnecessary, really.
It's almost like watching somebody do like a Let's Play and having them start it with them setting up their system, where you're just sort of like, didn't you take care of this already? Like that kind of thing. Or at the very least, like, why wasn't that footage on the screen and not the footage of the people watching that footage? It's just very strange. I don't know who made that call, but don't do that. Don't do that. And our opening contest was the NXT Tag Team Championship match. The Street Profits actually retained the titles against the Undisputed Era's Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. Did not see that coming at all. And from that point on, I was just like, I don't know what the fuck's happening tonight.
The match was fantastic. I don't care what you say, Tony. It was a good match. I think the wrong team won, but it's no secret how I feel with the Undisputed Era. I'm kind of glad the Street Profits are going to get an actual run, I guess, because it seemed like they were just going to go up to Raw right after winning those belts, and it didn't seem right. So we'll see where this goes, but I thought the match was great. I thought, as always, tag team wrestling shined, because tag team wrestling is actually important on NXT, and if that's something that changes when they go to cable, then then nothing matters anymore. And yeah, I thought it was a great way to start the night.
Yeah, I thought this was a very, very good tag team match. I don't know how to really... Every TakeOver has a great tag team match on it, so it's hard to really place it in the pantheon of great matches, but I thought it was a really well-told match. You had some comedy heel moments at the start of it, then you had Dawson firing up and getting angry with people, and just his hot tag where he just throws Kyle O'Reilly halfway across the ring into Bobby Fish is just so well put together. I just think there was a lot of really a good mix of funny, interesting moments which popped the crowd and actually really good, hard-hitting wrestling.
Is not Bobby Fish, is Kyle O'Reilly the MVP of the Undisputed Era?
He's at least
Cole
the
is.
sleeper.
Yeah, he's the one that, even though I personally find him the most interesting to watch, and his matches are always phenomenal. Cole has another level of charisma and X factor that O'Reilly just doesn't have.
If you took Kyle O'Reilly's abilities and you applied it to somebody who's a good talker who can't necessarily work in the ring like that, you'd have a major star.
The reason I ask is because, again, phenomenal tag team title match, and I think every tag team title match for maybe the last year has had Kyle O'Reilly, and they're always just so damn fun to watch.
I will say, though, that I did feel underwhelmed in this. I think that it took a while to get started, and once it did get on that kind of level that what I normally would put that, but ultimately when I got the end of this, I felt like it didn't match up to the same quality that we've gotten in the past. Because takeover matches that are in the tag team division tend to be amazing. And when you can name a couple that are match of the year candidates, this doesn't come anywhere close to that to me. This was good. And there wasn't a single match on this card that I thought wasn't good. But sometimes when you're used to having great, good feels disappointing, you know?
I mean, I would feel that way if I thought this match was good, but I thought it was great, so it doesn't really have that same effect with me. I can kind of get a sense of where you're coming from, because the start was a little bit more sluggish, and there was a bit more in just the standard heat segment, which I think the first hot tag to Montez Ford didn't get as powerful a reaction as probably they were expecting it to, because it happened quite out of nowhere. But when they did it for Dawson and then they went into the actual finishing sequence, it got really exciting. So I don't think it's at the same level as like War Machine against Ricochet and Aleister Black from earlier this year, or War Raiders or Viking Raiders, whatever you're going to call them now. Or some of the other previous matches, or the tag team match from the previous, like the ladder match from the previous takeover. But I think it's still good enough to like live up to the billing of being a tag team match on a takeover show.
And let me be clear too, this is better than most of the matches we're gonna get tomorrow night too.
Oh, do you like the Montez Ford channeling "He's in a rock" for some of it?
No. Well, it struck me as sometimes they do that when they're in the guy's hometown, and they're not. So I figured, hey, maybe Rock was at the PC recently visiting his daughter, and he's like, you know what? I had a cool interaction with The Rock, and I'm going to do his moves. I did find it funny that they called the People's Elbow, but when he dropped the rock bottom, they said, Uranagi.
Well, I think that this match is a good time to talk about something that we're going to address a couple other times a little bit later on, which is the crowd. Not a fan of this crowd.
I think there was, from what I could gather from like reports that I'd heard and stuff like that, a lot of the shows for the Toronto area for not so much SummerSlam, but the other shows, this TakeOver, the Raw and the SmackDown, have been selling really badly in terms of actually getting tickets in. And so they're pretty much, I think at some point towards the last couple of days, you could get a ticket for TakeOver Toronto for $7-ish, which is ridiculously low, probably compared to what they're originally going for.
Shit.
So
if anybody got a ticket for $7 and they saw this show tonight, that's a good deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's just a case of they seem to be, again, this has been an issue for not just this year, but for a couple of years now. They're struggling to draw live crowds at this point in time in North America in particular. I mean, when you go further abroad, it's because it's a bit more novelty. You don't see WWE coming through the UK or Japan or other places that often, so it's more of a spectacle. But in North America, they are starting to wane on attracting fans, and that's going to affect every promotion at this point in time. Maybe it's starting to go a little bit on a popularity downswing.
Still, though, if you're there, like, maybe react a little bit to some things.
Oh yeah, I would say that there were some instances where the crowd getting into it, but it felt a little bit more fleeting and less visceral than it has done on previous takeovers.
It kind of struck me, I don't know if this is just going to necessarily play that as well as I was originally going to say, but like from what I've seen of some Japanese audiences on just a couple shows here and there and everything, it seemed almost more like that, where people were more willing to be quiet and watch, and then if something happened, they'd be like, oh, I like that, than to be like kind of riling up throughout the whole thing, you know?
Well, that was my initial take on it. I was like, I like this crowd so far because they're not overtaking the show, and I think North American crowds have tended to do that. But right around the middle of the card, I started to feel like, okay, they're affecting the matches now because they're just so dry.
I would agree with Rob in the idea that I would prefer a crowd which is reacting to the match as opposed to reacting when they feel like it, which is what you often seem to get in a lot of, not just WWE, but any North American crowd nowadays. It's just they'll start cheering, like with the Gargano and Cole match, which we'll talk about later. You start chanting, "This is awesome," before they've even touched. You're not doing it as a reaction to them per se. I mean, you're doing it because you're looking forward to the match, but you're doing it because you want to chant it rather than, oh, they did something cool, I'm going to chant because I thought that was cool. I'm chanting because it feels like a good time to chant.
Well, if it feels like a good time to subscribe on YouTube, go ahead and do that while you can if you haven't done that already. And remember to drop your comments below. If you're on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or Spotify or any of the other kinds of platforms that we are out there that are audio only and you can't leave a comment, you should leave a rating or a like or a favorite or whatever they've got there and head on over to YouTube and do all that kind of stuff there. Let's move on to Candice LeRae versus Io Shirai. Io Shirai wins by submission. A match that I started out feeling like it was still underwhelmed a little bit, and it got better. It ended up being a good match, better than the tag team title match, I think. And I'm of two different opinions about some things here. I'm glad that they did this match. I'm glad that they had a second women's match on the card. I'm glad that this makes the feud seem more important because it wasn't just on a regular episode of NXT. But I'm also kind of curious where they necessarily go from here, because there's been a report that came out that this whole double taping thing that took place wasn't originally scheduled, and that everything kind of got messed up when it came to the Super Showdown event. That threw everything for a loop. And if you believe that report, which you have to take with a grain of salt, the original plan was Kairi Sane against Io Shirai, and Bianca Belair would have had another match with Shayna Baszler. That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. Does it make any sense to you guys?
Io Shirai Kairi Sane match makes a ton of sense. Just because I assume that going into this show or going further down the line, the idea was to have Shirai feud with Shayna Baszler and then eventually turn on Kairi Sane, leading to a match either on this takeover or at least at this point in time. But then Vince decided out of the blue to call Kairi Sane up to the main roster and do nothing with her. So,
but they got brought up to the main roster before these tapings.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that these plans weren't set beforehand.
And they already went through, what was it, 2, I think, maybe even 3 matches with Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler, like that. They did the singles match, and then she was in what, like a triple threat or a fatal 4-way, right?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the Bianca Belair one, but I just think the fact they had to rush forward really and try and create this friendship between Candice LeRae and Io Shirai pretty quickly out of nowhere is an indication that they were planning to have Kairi Sane to have that role in the first place. But plans change all the time in NXT due to the fact that Vince on a whim could want certain people up at any point in time.
It's a shame because I think that feud does make more sense other than this kind of manufactured Io and Candice are friends and now they're not friends because she just turns on her, whatever. They had built up a lot more with the whole idea of Io and Kairi doing that, but I still liked it. And if they go forward with this idea that heel Io Shirai is going to continue to kind of rise, then I'm not quite sure where they're going to go with Shayna Baszler, but if they want to turn things around and make Candice somebody who challenges for the title, they do have quite a bit of time. I mean, the next episode of NXT is already recorded. They're already going to just do the typical stuff that they do. It's going to be Fallout, and it's going to be the 2 matches. But the next taping is later on this week, if I remember correctly. It's like Thursday or so. And at that point, I mean, there's multiple weeks in August, all the way through September, all the way through October, and a little bit into November, too. They have a lot of time that they have to fill. And I got a feeling that maybe that's how they're going to build Candice LeRae back up. Maybe like a rematch between these two on 4 or 5 weeks from now or something like that.
They don't have that much time that they're building to an October 2nd FS1 debut.
Maybe that's where that takes place, though. Maybe they end up doing something where that is like a big blow off and it's like a number 1 contenders match or something.
I thought this match was beyond great. I enjoyed seeing both Io and especially Candice get a chance to shine without it being the story of Shayna Baszler and the NXT Women's title. I thought Candice really brought it and showed why she should have been one of the forefront premier signings to NXT. And I popped big when she did the top rope neck breaker, which is Jerry Ryan's old finishing move.
Yeah, I thought this match was excellent. I thought it was the best women's match I've seen on a takeover since the Ember Moon Asuka match from Brooklyn a couple of years ago. I thought they really went all out in terms of trying to put something really epic together, really showcase themselves. Like I said on the preview show for this, that this is Candice's first takeover show, so she really wanted to stand out, and I think she did it in a big way. But the real takeaway from this is how good Io Shirai is now as a heel. She exudes so much confidence and a real aura about her now.
I really liked how she not only took this as like a new entrance theme, but a new entrance, new ring gear, changed up her style a little bit, added a new finisher.
It's a real problematic issue which pervades across all of WWE in particular, like just from WWE to NXT and everywhere across it. Heels are just so much more interesting and badass than baby faces are. And it's just the reason why Stone Cold was the biggest star of the Attitude Era. It's because in any other era, he'd be a heel.
Mm-hmm.
And Becky Lynch is showing a very big heel tendency to her character now as well. They don't know how to book baby faces properly. And if they do, it has to be a very organic build-up process. Like, occasionally they will get someone like a Daniel Bryan or something along those sort of lines. Somebody who is the underdog character that eventually builds up and fights its way through. But otherwise, they're very cookie cutter and bland.
They're very reactionary to what a heel does. And sometimes that has been just like the regular norm in pro wrestling. You know, the heels dictate the pace of the match and all that kind of stuff. But you look at certain people like the Street Profits. They actually have characters. They are going out of their way to try to like do something. And then you look at somebody like the way that Candice LeRae has been booked, and she's pretty much the only reason she's in this feud is because of Io Shirai. So it could be very easy to just kind of have her be generic Bayley number 3 and not have things play out differently in the ring. So I actually liked that was not necessarily the case. Like, it wasn't just Io Shirai beats the shit out of Candice LeRae, you know?
No, it wasn't. And I think the fact that Candice was gutsy in defeat does help her out. The fact that she kicked out in the moonsault is a good sign for her as well. There were some really great spots in this match, reverse Ranas and Spanish flies off the top rope.
DDTs coming out of suicide dives.
Yeah, 619s, just trading German suplexes. And then forcing her to. I really like this little detail towards the end of it. I assume this was intentional, but if it wasn't, then it at least looked good. Was that Io puts her in the that like head scissors type hold, and then before Candice could even think about tapping out, she puts Candice's arm into the hold, so she can't tap out. She has to pass out to it. It's just that I thought that was a nice touch to it. If that was intentional, it's a genius touch.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it was intentional, because you could say that she was trying to fight her way out of it, but by locking the arm, there was no fight. There was no anything she had to lose.
And there was a nice like close up shot of Io's face at the end of it, where she's just looking at Candice beneath her and just saying, "Go away, go away." Just thought it's so different now as a heel. It's a real new like aura and personality about her, which I find really interesting, and I think should propel her quite far forward. Yeah, I think it will propel her quite far forward. But obviously, because as we'll talk about later, if the champion's still heel, I don't know how far she can really go forward.
This is the type of character that I really wanted Asuka to do. Like, just actually turn heel and get like that mean streak. and they never did that with her for some reason. So if
It
Io
seems
Shirai
like they
can
were
pull
on
that
the
off, like,
cusp, but then she got called up, and it was like, okay, change of plans once again.
yeah, it's a shame. I think that would have been. For my money, I think that Asuka should have turned heel and Io Shirai should have came up to the main roster and just been the Sky Pirates.
So are you the one that made that social media screw up on Monday Night Raw?
That to me is so ridiculous because that's happened a couple times now. Remember that whole thing with the Nakamura mask or whatever it was that they had put out there, that they were like, it was an Asuka mask and they said like it was a Nakamura one?
Yeah.
That's like, come on, guys.
I
You're not
think what
helping
was
out.
worse is that they replaced not Kyrie, but the one that's been on your roster for a year and a half. Like, geez, guys.
What was that report that came out recently where somebody said, who are the Kabuki Warriors? What was that thing? Do you guys know about that?
No, I haven't heard
no.
that.
It was something where, like, one of the producers or one of the writers or something, they were talking about the idea of the Kabuki Warriors in that tag title match, and they said, who's the Kabuki Warriors? And they said, the two Japanese girls. Which is, like, I wish I could find out more information about, like, who had this conversation, because it's like, if it was a writer, the hell are you getting paid the right for? All you gotta do is watch 5 hours worth of television a week. Like, you know, like, that's, I hope that wasn't true, or it was blown out of proportion or something weird, but, and again, I wouldn't be too shocked. But it's gonna be curious to see what happens with Shirai going forward, because, like you brought up, Shayna Baszler, spoiler for later on, Shayna Baszler retained the title, so I kind of can't imagine this is going to be Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai in another match, because at that point, why did they turn her heel? And it's very unlikely that we get heel versus heel type scenarios. So we already have, as well, War Games is going to be the next TakeOver event, and that one is going to include some kind of a multi-man match. So I sort of also can't see it being a scenario where we would get, like, a fatal 4-way, and it's Baszler versus Yim versus Shirai versus LeRae or something. I still am leaning towards just Candice against Shayna.
It would be interesting if the women's match was the War Games match.
I was thinking about that too. Like, you take the 4 horsewomen, you put them against Io, Mia Yim, and like Casey Catanzaro and Lacey Lane.
I was thinking more you take Shayna and the names of the people, Marina Shafir
And Jessamine Duke.
Jessamine Duke and Io Shirai, and you put them against Candice, Bianca, and Mia, and
probably Casey.
Yeah, either Casey or Dakota Kai if she's back.
See, that none of that still makes any real sense to me. I still kind of think that that's more of just like, if we're gonna pick random people like that, then why even? I still also think that War Games doesn't need to be a thing that happens every year, and it shouldn't be like, well, it's this time of the year, so that's War Games. But then again, I'm the type of person who doesn't want Hell in a Cell to come back every single year. This, it's October, clockwork, Hell in a Cell. But I'm leaning towards just straight up Shayna versus Candice, Shirai over the course of the next 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. When the hell is Survivor Series? November, like 11th or something like that?
Yeah, middle of November, I think.
So we got, 1 month all the way into September, another month all the way into October, another month into that. We got 3 months. We can figure this out. And
well, it's not our job to then.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not our job.
No, because if it was our jobs, it would have been figured out a long ass time ago. That's for sure.
Yeah, but then Vince would have called someone up, and then we have to change it all over again.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun. I don't want that job.
I still maintain that if there wasn't, like, if somebody were to say, "Here you go, we're switching things up, try to figure it out," I feel like I could, like, redo plans within the course of an hour for almost anything. Still think that would be a good asset, but who knows? Yeah, good match though, and that match was one of the ones that, leading into this whole scenario, we were trying to figure out what that other match would be. One of the other things that was an option was Matt Riddle versus Killian Dane. Now, they didn't have their match, but they did have a little bit of a spotlight where Matt Riddle came out, called out Killian Dane, and they had a little bit of a brawl where Dane ended up splashing Riddle, he's off the stage onto 2 tables. And it's basically just a thing where it's like, these guys just hate each other so much because of the one time that they kind of fought and whatever. How'd you guys feel about that little segment? I like that they added it.
I thought it was really fun. Like, you don't see just spontaneous brawls like that anymore. You know, the only thing I didn't like was at the end, though Killian Dane didn't run fast enough, and the one guy was just kind of standing there knowing what the spot was.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes you out of the illusion for a second. But I thought this was great. I thought Matt Riddle with the bro character, instead of saying whoa, 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 because they were cutting to the triple threat match, he cut them off with bro, 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 which is always fun. Riddle looked great. He beat the crap out of a bunch of people. Killian Dane, in like 2 weeks, has looked more entertaining than he did on the main roster ever. So I thought it was a win-win.
Yeah, it was nice to. It felt like a hijacking of the show, which is a good thing because they were about to move on to the video package for the triple threat match, and you just hear Matt Riddle's voice saying, "Okay, I want to fight Killian Dane now." And the brawl was good. Taking out security was great. I didn't like how flimsy the screen looked when Killian Dane knocked Matt Riddle against it. It looked like it was like pieces of cardboard holding it together.
Yeah, those never really look all that great.
No. And then going off the stage, again, the security guard just waiting there. That poor guy, I hope he got a decent paycheck for that night. Just to have to go off through Killian Dane for no reason, just for the fact to, I don't know, maybe trying to protect Dane's fall a little bit. But yeah, it was just a cool little angle which should lead on to a match in the next couple of weeks, which should be very good.
He got a pass for catering.
Oh, that's not too bad.
A couple hot dogs, you know. I wonder if they have the same type of catering in NXT shows as they do with main roster, because you got to assume when they're doing the tapings, they probably do, since they're going to be there for a long time. But for like a takeover event, I wonder if they actually go with like the full spread of 3 cakes and 300 cookies and whatever that breakdown was. Do you remember reading that?
Do you think catering in WWE is like similar to the writing style, where Vince just comes in one day and he just sees the things laid out and he says, "Fuck all this! I don't want all this stuff. You got to get more stuff in the last minute." It's like, no.
He's like, "God damn it! I don't want fucking buttercream." And it's just like, well, we can give you something else. Redo the cake, god damn it! It's like, we don't have time to redo an entire cake. We don't bake this shit. We just get it from other places like that. Well, you're fired. You know. We'll see. We'll see. Like, we're gonna fucking
we're gonna find that out. Yeah.
Tony, are you like aiming for a job tonight? What are you doing?
You know, I would totally be cool with having a job. I would be totally cool with a pass to catering. A little bit hungry. I am totally cool with buttercream. It's a good icing. That answers future mailbag questions.
This would be a good time to suggest donating to the Patreon so that Tony gets some buttercream.
Yes, indeed. If you want more buttercream and you want more podcasts and you want more of everything, the Patreon is the best way for me to get motivated to sleep less and stuff. And whether you got $1 or $5 or $10 or $20 or $48,272 or whatever you might want to do, then the Patreon you can hit up and do that for Smark Out Moment and for Fanboys Anonymous, which, yeah, what the hell, I'll talk about that too. Fanboys Anonymous is the sister site to the Smark Out Moment, where I do all my movie reviews and TV show talk and stuff. Just put up a review of Glow after that show went through, binge watched all 10 episodes of that, and I'll talk about that probably on Hot Tags with Rob a little bit, but I want to do more Fanboy stuff, so subscribe to that YouTube channel, ring that bell for the notifications, follow on Facebook and Twitter. Do the same thing for Smark Out Moment, by the way. That's Smark Out Moment on both of those. And you can also pick up some merchandise on the TeePublic and Redbubble shops for Fanboys Anonymous, A Mango Tees, and Smark Out Moment. Those are the best ways to motivate me to keep doing more. So keep all that in mind. The merch shops, Patreon, Fanboys, and all your support. Let's talk about Austin Theory being in the crowd. He's talked a lot about going to a TakeOver event and bringing a championship, but they didn't show any of the titles. And that actually brought up a question that I was curious about. I don't know if you guys know or not, but Do you happen to know if he still has both championships, or if they just turned this into the Evolve title and they got rid of the
they just
WWE
turned
win?
it into the Evolve title.
That seems like that would make a lot more sense.
Because they called him the Evolve champion.
Yeah, it just struck me as when we were going into the Evolve thing, it was like, all right, well, if you have Evolve and you're making Evolve a bigger thing, maybe you don't need the World Wrestling Network championship.
And in my opinion, as good as Theory is, I think Josh Briggs should be right there next to him in the crowd at NXT.
I did find it quite interesting because usually when they pan to the people in the crowd watching, you see like a big pop and a huge reaction. It was interesting to do it where 90% of the people in the crowd had absolutely no idea who this guy was.
Had no clue.
They did not give a shit at all.
No.
That was the weakest response, even compared to when they show like a celebrity in the crowd and it's like, oh, look at this. It's one of the Detroit Lions is in the middle of the crowd and they're like, oh, I'm pretending to headlock my friend. And people are like, oh, I get that. That's a team. And with Austin Theory, they're just sort of like, who's this dude? It's a shame because that guy's great.
Yeah, I can't really blame it on the crowd, though. It's just a case that this guy he's young and he hasn't developed a big enough name for himself yet.
And eventually when he gets in there and people are talking about, like, give him the world title immediately and all that other kind of stuff, then, you know.
I'm pretty sure they won't. There's a lot of talent in NXT right now.
I don't think he's popping up, like, in the next taping or something like that. But they did tease that because nearly every single person that they've ever had pop up on that, the next taping or the taping after that, they've tended to show up. I think one of the only instances where that wasn't the case was Jazzy Gabert. I think that they waited like a full set of tapings or so before they went through with her. But that might have been an injury thing. I don't know. Austin Theory has talked a lot about going into takeovers. He's talked a lot about going into WWE, and they seem to really like him a lot. So it would not shock me if over the course of the next couple of months, if we see him officially on the roster by 2020, like the beginning of 2020.
Just a thought, why not make the War Games NXT versus Evolve?
Because we want to draw tickets.
Yeah, I don't think people would really be all that much into that. I think that would have to be some kind of live event.
They'd have to do it in like New York or Philly for it to matter.
They'd have to really set Evolve up more. Like, they'd have to showcase the people that are on Evolve on NXT and then set up some kind of like group or something, and it'd have to be like the Undisputed Era versus Austin Theory and three theory people. I don't know what they would call themselves. The Theorizers.
It'll be the Big Bang Theory.
No, that's the name of their finisher. Their finisher is the Big Bang Theory.
It could be Austin Theory, Austin Guess, Austin Hypothesis.
Stop that. Stop.
Austin Scientific Method.
Stop.
And it could go take place in Austin, Texas. There you go. Hometown heroes. Let's move on before I keep going down this fucking rabbit hole. Donate to the Patreon. Well, we had that interruption with Matt Riddle, and now it was time to actually go into the triple threat match for the North American Championship. Velveteen Dream going in as champion, Roderick Strong going in as the person that everybody was like, oh, he's going to win the title, and Pete Dunne going in as, what the hell is this guy doing here? And amazing match.
Hold on. Velveteen Dream's entrance. I love the Velveteen Dream. The Mountie thing was a nice, funny touch. Then, giving the shout out to the Toronto Raptors, having just that awesome entrance. There's nothing about the Velveteen Dream that doesn't exude charisma and stardom.
He is just so much better than so many people in so many categories. And if I were somebody like who's like pretty low, like a Cesar Bononi, where they're like, hey, he's got a Future Star of the Year award 3 years ago, whenever the hell that was, and he's done jack shit with it, and it does not seem to be working out. And I looked at somebody like a Velveteen Dream, I'd be like, God damn it, no wonder. Because this dude's got talent in the ring, he can tell a story, he can cut promos, he's got a character, he can do entrances. He's exactly what you are looking for. And every time he comes out, he does something. It's just kind of like, give that guy another belt, It's just like,
it's like you forgive the fact that he's not a wrestler of the caliber of a Roderick Strong or Pete Dunne or Adam Cole or Johnny Gargano, because he's so much of a superstar.
It's almost like he's born in a different era.
It's more than just being born of a different era. He's of a different dimension almost. It's got that ethereal quality to him, which you can't put your finger on. You can't train someone to have that sort of like aura about them. They have to just have it naturally, and he has charisma just flowing out of his veins, it feels like.
Can we name that other dimension either the Dreamscape or Dreamland?
I like the Dreamscape.
Dreamland can be like his ranch somewhere. People like naming their homes. This was so good though. Like,
It's just such a great triple threat.
Top to bottom, this was so much fun. And whether it was a moment for Pete Dunne to shine or a moment for Roderick Strong to shine or Velveteen Dream to do something, I just enjoyed it from the very start until the very end. And I gotta say, my favorite part of the whole thing, though, and some people might be like, that's your favorite part, but Dream pretending like he's injured and that the referee should check up on him while he knows that there's a pinfall happening, that Dunne really could have won the title. And the referee's just sort of like, I gotta like take the pinfall. And he's like, no. That just like, jumps and stops the referee from the 3 count. That's such a good thing for it's like, it's one thing to distract the referee, but then to continue that going forward and be like, all right, now I'll just, fuck you. I'm going to push you out of the way. Like, loved that moment.
And everybody, I know sometimes they try to do these, we're going to protect them spots, but everybody was so protected here. That moment with the Dream where Pete Dunne was clearly the winner, but Dream stopped the count. Roderick Strong at the end with the end of Heartache, and Velveteen Dream was just immediately there to knock him out of the picture. Everybody looked so good here. And this brand, when I watch NXT TakeOver, I genuinely have a good time. And this match was the perfect example of that.
I think when I'm watching Roderick Strong, I think if he had a bit more like promo ability and a bit more in-ring charisma, he'd be this generation's Kurt Angle. I watched some of his moves, like these back breaks that he puts into the stuff, like that spot on the outside of the ring where he was just taking them both out with a mixture of back breakers, like slamming Pete Dunne onto the back of Velveteen Dream and hitting them off the ring apron onto the barricade, and then later on when he was doing those charging with forearms against the ropes and taking them all out as quickly as he possibly could. He's an absolute phenomenon in the ring, and Pete Dunne is as awesome as always, manipulating the body parts, and the crowd absolutely adore him. And Velveteen Dream, while not in the same league of wrestling ability as these two right now, I'm pretty sure in the trajectory he's going, he'll be there in the next couple of years or so, but exudes so much character and charisma and tells such a good story. And I thought his selling was excellent in this match. The way that he was selling the back quite often during it as well, I thought, because he was essentially just getting that railed constantly by Roderick Strong, I thought he was very consistent with that. We're just saying it's easy to do, especially in a time of NXT when you're just not so much doing spot fest matches, but you're doing matches that are common on the independent circuit where you're just trying to go from one spot to the next. He stayed true to what was going on in the previous moments of the match, and yeah, it all flowed together in a really, really good way.
I would say this is my second favorite match of the night. Would you guys be on par with that, or where's his rank?
Yeah,
I mean,
number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard when you essentially have the epic movie scene at the end of the show, right? Because at the end of the day, this had a third of the amount of time of the main event had, and I think in that time they used it as well as they possibly could. But it's definitely the second best match of the night.
So, do we talk about the Undisputed Era here?
I was actually going to bring that up right now. I was going to say, so where do we go with the Undisputed Era? Because at this point, it wasn't even the fact that the tag team title hasn't changed hands, but Roderick Strong failed to win as well. And they were kind of putting it out on the commentary side of things as well. They could actually leave with no titles instead of all the titles. And I'm still kind of confused about where they're going to go. Like, I had thought that maybe, I mean, we all kind of thought Undisputed Era was winning on those belts, but when the tag title match happened, then I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe Roderick Strong wins, and maybe they're setting up Street Profits to, like, I don't know, some kind of like a last chance type of match on NXT, or hell, if they wanted to go like really fun, which they'll never do it, but it would be like, wouldn't it be kind of fun if maybe like the Street Profits were on Monday Night Raw the way that they've been, and the Undisputed Era when the title's there, and they make a big deal out of that. But now it's like, well, you can't do that with that and with Roderick Strong. But Strong didn't take the pin. So
I think they were caught in the mindset of, if they had Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish win and then had Roderick Strong win, well, there's no jeopardy for the main event because you already had the other Undisputed Era guys win the title, and so it's pretty obvious that Adam Cole's going to retain the title. Whereas if you have them both lose, people start thinking, oh, Undisputed Era may be coming up, so that means, is Cole going to lose the title tonight? And then what happened, and you're left confused, but not in a terrible way. I think that there might be a scenario in one of the tapings going forward where they have a show where Adam Cole essentially berates the Undisputed Era and says, okay, you've got one more chance to win the title that you're supposed to win, and if you don't, you're out of the group.
would you guys be okay with a scenario where both titles are on the line and it's something like the Street Profits are hanging around backstage with the Velveteen Dream, and it becomes like Fish and O'Reilly and Strong all say like, you know what, fuck you, we want those titles, and it's a 6-man tag?
Yeah, I'd
No.
be fine with that.
No, I think they need to actually beat the people to do it. I wouldn't be comfortable with Dream losing his title because Fish pinned Dawkins or whatever. I just think it needs to be cut and dry that they beat each other.
I kind of thought if anybody had the best chance of losing before the show started, it would be Roddy. But with them not winning those titles, it seemed weird, and they left, arm in arm. They're still brothers. But do we get a situation where he berates them because they're out of options? Are they out of challengers? Is it something like, all right, next takeover, you're going to get a fatal 4-way with these guys because we know they can do it? And let's be real, that'd be as good of a match as any. We've seen all these guys fight each other at one point or another. We know the matches would be good, but it's not something I personally want to see because I love the Undisputed Era. I love the vibe of the group, and I think it's just a matter of waiting. They'll get all those belts at some point. Maybe that's what we're building towards with War Games. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to lead, at least initially, to the breakdown of the Undisputed Era, but I think you need to start teasing that at this point, because as great as they are, and they are a fantastic unit together, there will come a point where it's overkill, and you do need to move on and try something different. It's not now, but I think you need to start sowing seeds that could potentially happen at some point going forward. So having Cole come out on the next episode and gloat about how he retained his championship and he took Gargano out and he's not going to be a threat anymore and he's ready to move on to something new, and then he just turns to the other guy and says, well, while I'll be moving on to something new, what you guys are all in the same position you were before TakeOver. And then he'll just challenge them to, maybe he makes a deal with William Regal behind their backs, whereas if they don't win, they get one more shot at each of their titles, but if they don't win, they're out of NXT. And so they can't be Undisputed Era anymore.
But then doesn't that run into the same risk of whoever does that match first, it becomes, okay, well then now they're just going to win those titles, and we know that it's the last chance kind of thing, so there's no jeopardy kind of thing?
Potentially, but I think if you structure the matches well enough, you can get through it. I think it would be better to do the if you did the tag team match first and they were to win it, then that would make I think there would still be jeopardy for the Strong match, because Strong has always been the one who's on the outside, really, as the one who joined the group last, and the one they've already sown seeds between him and Adam Cole of some sort of animosity between them. So I think that if you put that one on last, you'd still have enough jeopardy to suggest that maybe he doesn't win the title. And maybe not like get kicked out of NXT, but getting kicked out of the group, people would still buy that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
I just really am hoping that this doesn't become some kind of like, well, we had plans, but they didn't 100% go through, so we said we'd figure it out, and now enough time's gone by, so we didn't figure it out, so let's put like the tag titles on the Forgotten Sons or something stupid, and then it would be like, God damn it, you know? But then again, once the Undisputed Era win those titles, what do? You know, you need to have
They
people that are
have them for a
built
little
up
bit and
big
they
enough
lose
to
them.
be able to challenge them where it means something. So,
Yeah,
I don't know.
eventually they'll lose them.
But I don't think NXT has a problem building stars. I think that's why this is the one place where you can do that sort of angle, because you can build even a guy like Cesar Bononi, if you wanted to. You could build him as a credible challenger for Roderick Strong throughout the course of maybe 3 or 4 months on TV. I think NXT is good with that. That's why I think more and more it's getting scary. Like, we're going to talk about Shayna Baszler in a few seconds. Do you really want to see her go anywhere else?
Oh, the thing that is tough about that is the answer is yes, but then it's got that caveat of so long as Triple H is in charge. It's like, I'd love to see her go to Monday Night Raw, not get lost in the shuffle the way that things happen on Monday Night Raw. If Monday Night Raw were NXT, it'd be amazing. You know?
There goes Tony adding asterisks based
those
on
little
Triple H
asterisks.
again.
It's always a little star HHH for a lot of different things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is also the reason that they didn't put those titles on them is because they've got a match planned for War Games where they can't have those titles, and it would be like the Undisputed Era are all fighting somebody, but we need a tag team title match on the side and a North American title match on the side, and I don't know. But I was left utterly confused because I figured all the championships would change except for Shayna Baszler. And then at that point, since they didn't, I was like, well, fuck, maybe I might actually beat Shayna Baszler. I don't know what I'm talking about. And she didn't. Shayna Baszler retained by submission. But this match I thought was really good as far as storytelling goes, that they gave something different. Mia Yim was the one that was in charge. She was dictating the pace for a lot of this. She was the one who was on top the way that Shayna Baszler normally is. You know, she's kind of taking out Baszler's arm and targeting a lot of different limbs. And I like that they did that different. It was kind of the flipping the script of what we normally get. So Baszler proves that she's not a Brock Lesnar. She can wrestle the opposite style match and not the same thing over and over again.
I thought this was an incredibly clever, well-told, intelligent match, and it went completely over the crowd's head.
100%. This crowd did not give one single shit about this, and it's a shame because they killed a lot of what that fun could have been.
This was a really old school match, and I mean that in the best possible way of doing it. And I think it's an issue with the idea of, I think the crowd at this point in time, especially the NXT audience, want the old school booking technique, like the old school storylines, the build, that sort of thing, but they want the new school matches. And this one had an old school build and then delivered an old school match, and the crowd just died during it. It was just so well thought out. Just every little detail about it was so good. The fact that she targeted Baszler's arm and Baszler sold that the entire match. The fact that Mia Yim showed that she was willing to go to the same sort of lengths as Baszler would do to win matches by pulling her hair and gouging her eyes and stuff along those lines. So Yim wasn't like a clean-cut babyface. She was willing to cut corners because she knew that Baszler would do it as well. And then Baszler eventually gets on top, starts attacking the arm like she would do, but Yim can fight back into it, start using more attacks on Baszler's arm, start doing the same sort of stomps that she does to to injure it. She did a brilliant code blue off the top rope, which got the crowd to pop for a split second, and then they realised that they didn't want to cheer for this match, so they decided to go back and be quiet still. And then the finish, I think, was great with the first time she tried to lock in the clutch. Yim took the arm out and started to work on it again, and then Baszler tried it again, but realising the arm was hurt, she went for a leg vice instead, and so Yim ended up tapping out to that. The details in Shayna Baszler's matches are outstanding, and I just don't think fans today can. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, like as a general rule, but at least this crowd it flew completely over their heads and they didn't give a fuck about it, which I thought was incredibly disappointing.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they want old school stories, but they don't respond well to old school matches. And Shayna Baszler may be one of the best in-ring storytellers that the company has. I think her matches can easily fit into a lot of eras because they're based on the reality of, that human game of chess kind of element that you would only see with like an Angle and a Benoit, or Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle back in 2003. These matches are so much fun, and I thought Mia Yim was perfect. Mia Yim told a great story. I grew up in the streets. I'm not afraid to bend the rules and kick your ass. But at the end of the day, when you're out wrestled, you're out wrestled, and she had to tap. I thought this was perfect.
And nobody cared in the crowd. And that's a shame because despite this match not going over all that well, Mia Yim looked really strong. Baszler is still on top, so she comes out looking good. And I think that they were both elevated from this, and it's just going to be one of those things that gets swept under the rug as being like, didn't make that big of a splash. Let's move on.
Do you think part of the issue was that Yim going in just didn't feel like a strong enough challenger?
Maybe.
I just feel like
I don't know.
I thought she was built really reasonably well. I just don't think that the audience gravitated towards her.
I think that the issue isn't so much Yim, it's that they didn't build this as this is the potential where Baszler loses. Like, Yim looks like a strong contender, the way that Bianca Belair did, because she went in undefeated, but there's no atmosphere of like, the title reign's doomed because of like the non-kayfabe side of things. You know what I mean? Like, when you go into WrestleMania, you kind of assume baby faces are going to win the matches, the titles are going to change hands, lots of new champions are going to be crowned. Something like tomorrow with SummerSlam, we're looking at some of those matches and going, okay, well, this thing feels like it's a big deal, this thing doesn't. If it's not a momentous type of occasion, a lot of the times I feel like people just go, all right, well, Mia Yim's not going to win because Baszler beats everybody, so let's just kind of push that off on the side. We know what's going to happen, and we don't care. And then with War Games, if they do the same kind of thing, and it ends up being just like, who's another babyface other than Candice and Yim? Like, Xylee. If they just sort of start having her wrestling, and they build it as like, all right, well, I guess she's the number one contender. Unless they make it seem like, Baszler's going to move up to the main roster, then I don't think that people are going to really care all that much, you know?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So, disappointing in that regard. I can understand why some people wouldn't think that this was like the best match ever, because, I mean, it's not going to be match of the year or anything like that, but I did like the storytelling. So, thumbs up on that one. And then we had our 45-minute or so main event. Lasted quite a while. I think they went on at like 9:10. They ended at like 9:50 something or whatever. But our 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Championship, Adam Cole going in as champion, Johnny Gargano as the challenger. First fall was a normal classic wrestling match. Second one was a street fight. And the third one we found out was a steel cage, but not 100%. the normal steel cage. Instead, it was that Ambrose Asylum type thing where you just had stuff all over the ring and all over the cage, I should say. Barbed wire on the top, you got weapons on the side, sledgehammers, kendo sticks, all that stuff. First question for you guys. What do you think about the idea of the steel cage being that?
That is fucking brilliant. I thought this match was so much fun because you don't see that. You don't see just innovative situations, and this was just a playful match. This is the kind of match that just made me, all right, I'm completely invested in, oh my god, what are these two guys gonna do? And you don't get that. And was it the Ambrose Asylum? Yeah, but I also think they made tremendous improvements on the original match, where like this match had chains on the door and barbed wire all over the place, so you couldn't get out. There wasn't anything that didn't have a weapon on it, and the weapons were like really fun weapons. There was ladders and tables, and there was a bag, but not a bag of thumbtacks, just a bag of like brass knuckles and bolt cutters. And there's just so much playfulness here. And by the way, they did not tell the live crowd what the stipulation was. We saw the video package, the live crowd did not. And they had the cage blocked with the lighting. So when that cage dropped, the place went fucking insane. Because they didn't know. So when they saw barbed wire and shit, like, they lost their minds. And I thought that was super cool.
While I feel the cage is somewhat overused in both, if you watch both like WWE and NXT stuff like we do nowadays, I think there've been at least 3 or 4 cage matches in the last couple of months. So that side of things, maybe it could have been a bit different, but I think the fact that they did take up a notch with all of the barbed wire attachments and all the weapons put on the side of it, and coming as like a final battlefield for these two guys to compete for the championship, I thought it worked really well.
I do feel like that cage thing's been overdone, and I do feel like it's kind of annoying that we're going to get a Hell in a Cell thing coming up very soon, and then we're going to get the War Games thing coming up pretty soon after that, and that's going to really hinder things, especially if they then go and put like some other cage match in there, and then we get that, and then we get Elimination Chamber, and it's just they're really killing the cage thing, but at least they added that extra element to it. That's what made that a lot different. And the majority of this match was the normal wrestling match. Hell of a match. I liked that they had teased this idea that we've seen before. It was, I think, Daniel Bryan and Sheamus, where we had a 2 out of 3 falls match, and you got the option that you can beat the crap out of your opponent and lose by DQ, but then you've got the advantage because you just beat the crap out of them. And instead of it being Cole that did it, it was actually Gargano that took advantage of that. And I really liked that near fall of the low blow that led into that. And I think this might have been the first time that I can ever remember where the chair broke in a way that just one of those little rungs on the bottom part fell off. And when I first saw that, I was like, is there a lead pipe in the ring? And I thought that was really kind of funny. I liked that Gargano was the one that decided, you know what, I'm going to do that. Fuck that. I'm going to beat the crap out of you. And that was pretty brutal. He tosses the chair right at Cole's face. A lot of like head maneuver type stuff that happened in there. So that DDT on the edge of the chair, that looked like that was pretty rough.
Shout out to the chair. When Gargano threw it at Cole, it opened up perfectly into a seated position, and that little thing just made me pop. In the cage match portion, they had a fire extinguisher hung so perfectly that all Gargano had to do was pull the hose part out of it and sprayed Cole, and I thought that was perfect. That led into that nasty DDT that you mentioned. There was a lot, like the Panama Sunrise off the ladder, the Cole biting Gargano to get out of the STF with the kendo stick. So much fun.
Hell of a match. Match of the year candidate, I think. Definitely the best of the night. And it's hard to see a match like this and feel like they left anything out there that needed to be done. Like, what more can you want from a match like this, you know?
When we talk about the realism of the Shayna Baszler match beforehand, this is straight out of the world of fantasy. And like it was diametrically opposite in that way, that it was still as flawless and perfect as you want it to be. The first four, we see a lot of great wrestling between the two of them. You still see, obviously, the animosity between the two of them, but it's like incredibly well wrestled. But then once Gargano hits him with a chair and gets disqualified and starts beating him with it, then the brawl that was the street fight was fantastic. The Gargano taking a selfie outside after beating up Cole from a fan's phone was great. Diving through Cole through the barricade, putting him through a Spanish announce table. I was wondering why there was a Spanish announce table out there, like at the side, because they don't typically have them for an NXT show, but I guess they decided to do it. Gargano, the finish with the for the street fight where Gargano lawn darts him into the steel chair, and then locks in the Gargano escape, was like a great way to show Gargano was still at that sort of level. And then the cage match is just wall-to-wall insanity. Like, so many weapons being used. I obviously find it quite interesting that they had a spot where I think it was either, I don't know whether it was Gargano or Cole, goes up to try and grab a steel chair that was hanging at the top. And I thought, well, there's 3 steel chairs lying about in the ring. You could probably use one of those instead. But
wasn't that the hammer?
The sledgehammer was one thing where Gargano was climbing up to the one that was on the top, and he's passing by one that's closer down to him, and that was kind of strange.
I know there was definitely one point where Cole grabs a chair, but the reason why he needs to grab that chair is because he's pulling it down, and then Cole rams Gargano's head into the cage where the chair's there.
I like that part too.
Yeah, it's good, but it's obviously there are many chairs in the ring already, so. But that's good. Using a sledgehammer, obviously, the Triple H connotations, it gets a good reaction. That Canadian Destroyer off the top rope by Gargano onto Cole. I just love how terrified Cole looked as well as soon as Gargano went to grab that piece of barbed wire. Just like his immediate thought is, oh my god, there's one strand of barbed wire. I must immediately climb out of this cage and get away from it.
Well, what the hell was all that about, though? It's like, I'm going to get this barbed wire, then we're going to climb up there so that we can fall backward. Admittedly, that was the part where I was just like, all right, what the fuck? Like, that
right, Tony,
threw me off.
It's a fucking superhero movie. He's going to cut him up with his barbed wire. He's climbing onto a ledge, and while he's still trying to cut him up, they fall over the ledge together. Like,
but why would you be like, I know where I need to cut him up? Like,
it's a movie.
That's just, to me, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And
Tony, if anything, Roman Reigns is gonna fight a forklift tomorrow. Like,
and the forklift better win. If he picks up the forklift and starts hitting it with barbed wire, I'm gonna be confused. It was a crash at the end, like the idea that was like, all right, now they're completely spent. That makes sense, but I was just like, didn't quite get the barbed wire part, you know.
I guess it was just like, it was the one little bit that Cole was just scared of being cut by it, so because all the other stuff was mainly going to hit him in the body, so he thought, okay, that's going straight for my face, so I need to get out of this situation. I think. And one of the great things about it, though, was even though it had these bizarre and ridiculous spots, it also had a story in the fact that Cole was selling his leg the entire time.
Because he hit the knee. He went for the Shining Wizard, but he nailed the chair.
Yeah, but it's just a case of that was the big hint through the entire thing, was the fact that Cole never actually hit the last shot. Or at least I don't recall him doing it. So, and he hit multiple Panama Sunrises and everything else, but he couldn't hit that move because that was the move. That was the body part that Gargano had targeted the entirety of the 45-minute long match. So I thought that was a nice little thread that was weaving its way through the entire thing, on top of the sheer insanity of everything else going on.
Johnny Gargano, strong candidate for me for Gear of the Year with the Wolverine themed gear. I love the 90s Wolverine. I love that color scheme. The whole thing just fucking worked for me.
Yeah, that looked really cool. I always like the different superhero kind of things that he does because fuck it, I like superheroes. So
I don't want to backtrack throughout the entire night, but just more Ronaldo was in another stratosphere tonight. There was a point in the Velveteen Dream match where Dream got crotched on the post, and Ronaldo says, "In the home of the Toronto Raptors, it's nothing but nuts." And that's just, he was so great tonight. I saw a lot of people on Twitter getting a little annoyed with how much he was making references and he had the alliteration going on. But Ronaldo is so much fun. Like, I've watched a lot of wrestling this year. NXT, above all else, except for the G1, really, has been the most, like, I love wrestling. I want to watch more, do something more with wrestling, and that's something I can't say that I've even gotten from All Elite. I'm certainly not getting it from the main roster.
Yeah, it's. I think first of all, I'd be worried about the stuff that you said about people not saying Ronaldo's commentary was a bit over the top, because that's your employers you're talking about right there. So, because I definitely saw Fightful, the guy who's running the Fightful wrestling account, saying that Ronaldo's references were getting a bit over the top. That was
the first one I saw too.
Yeah, so.
Well, I mean, everybody has their different opinions.
Yeah.
Some people are like, the best commentator of all time is, oh my god, why am I blanking on his fucking name now? The ECW one.
Oh, Joey Styles.
Joey Styles. I was like Jimmy something or other. Like, some people love that whole "oh my god" type thing, and I fucking hated that. You know.
I did like in this match. I think in the Cole Gargano match, after he did the backdrop through the table, when I was saying "holy bleep indeed."
What else did he say?
Something mother effing something.
He said Io Shirai's hero is Rey Mysterio, but lately she's been acting like Marvel's Mysterio, who treated Spider-Man the way she's treating Candice LeRae.
I thought that one was a bit.
That was a stretch.
I was like, he's really working them in tonight, but fuck, he's getting them in there, and it's fun because, you know, we make fun of Michael Cole a lot with that. It's boss time and the big dog, but like that, those are fed lines. Nobody's feeding Mauro Ranallo a line about Spider-Man and Mysterio.
It would be kind of funny though if he like went the extra mode where he's like, Io Shirai, she is so obsessed with Rey Mysterio, but she's more like Mysterio from Spider-Man, who debuted on The Amazing Spider-Man number 13 from June 1964, written by, and it's like, just, and you're just gonna like, what the fuck, why are you doing all this Spider-Man stuff? Because quitting back was what, and the match is like over, and he's still talking about, you know, part of the Sinister Six, and like...
I'd like to think that there's some producer behind the scenes who's just Googling pop culture references just every opportunity and just slowly feeding them into... But
well, now I kind of want Io Shirai to come out with a fucking fishbowl on her head. So that's what happens with that.
Obviously, we talked about the finish of the match. We talk about what this means now for Gargano in particular. Because we can obviously talk about Cole's a champion now, and nobody else in the Street Era has the championship, so it'd be interesting to see where he goes for it. Gargano, I don't know if it's like very widely known, but this is only his fifth match since he won the title in TakeOver New York. He's not wrestled any house shows or live events since the 8th of March. I think he's beaten up, and I think there's something, I don't want to say significantly injured, but I think he needs time off.
I think he's taking time off too. And by now he's wrestled a couple times. He really should not, under any kind of logical grounds, be ready for another title shot, because there's plenty of other people that should be next in line to get a chance. And maybe not necessarily somebody like a Keith Lee, but you can work in a lot more people like that, and a Matt Riddle, or if he's able to return in time, Tommaso Ciampa. Gargano, he's got his couple of shots. He went through, he came up short, and I think that they should keep him out for the rest of the year.
Do we see a thing where DIY eventually leads the charge against the Undisputed Era?
I could see them coming back as a tag team. That might be a way to freshen up the division, keep Gargano in a prominent position, because he needs to be in a prominent position, but outside of the main title picture. I think maybe you could do something where Ciampa comes back while Gargano's still on hiatus, challenges for the title, doesn't get the win, the Undisputed Era beat him up, Gargano makes the save, and they challenge for the tag team titles instead. If indeed the Undisputed Era has won the tag titles by that point in time.
Well, it depends on people getting called up to the main roster too, because this FS1 thing, if that works out in a certain capacity, then who are they going to want to keep there? Who are they going to want to bring up to the main roster? Because they can't take the FS1 side of things and then also say, okay, well, we're going to bring up the Undisputed Era and Gargano and Shayna Baszler and the Street Profits and so-and-so. We're going to put them on Raw and SmackDown because we really need them on Raw and SmackDown, as if we can't just use the fucking people that we have that we never really use, and then leave NXT with a 2-hour show with less people. So I think that they're sticking around, and if you give Gargano a little bit of time off, Ciampa will come back at some point. He should have a match with Adam Cole, and then you got to take it from there. Does he come back in time for, say, War Games? Or does Ciampa have to come back before the Royal Rumble? Or there is a show that's happening on a random Saturday in March, and I'm kind of curious what's happening with this. I wanted to talk about this in some range, and I think that maybe now might be actually the time to do that. I went through the projected breakdown of what their plans are for like different live events that had leaked. And if anybody doesn't know, this whole document that went out, it was every event that's something that's other than just like a house show that they had planned all the way up until essentially WrestleMania 36. And I double checked all that the other day. And when I went through that, I noticed that in February or March, I'm trying to find what that information was right now. There's a random Saturday that would not line up with anything really. It is the 14th of March. So it's after what most likely would be Fastlane. March 8th is the only Sunday in March that seems to be an event. And I'm wondering if maybe this whole idea of SmackDown being on Fridays, how are they going to do the Hall of Fame? How are they going to do TakeOver? How are they going to do all that kind of stuff? If they keep the Hall of Fame on the night before WrestleMania, they can't do TakeOver before WrestleMania. And they can't do TakeOver on Friday because of SmackDown. And they can't do TakeOver on Monday because of Raw. And you can't do that afterward anyway. So I'm wondering if maybe March 14th is actually a TakeOver, and that's just going to be taking place a couple weeks before, and they're going to separate that from WrestleMania.
Nope. Triple H already confirmed they're doing WrestleMania in Tampa. They're doing TakeOver in Tampa WrestleMania weekend, and it's the 30th TakeOver, so that's probably going to be the name, and they're probably going to do something special with that. But
I don't know when they're going to be able to put that on the card and everything too, because maybe that'll be. I mean, I doubt it, but maybe that would be WrestleMania. Not WrestleMania. Maybe that would be a way to take TakeOver out of that, or maybe that would be a way to do the Hall of Fame, or maybe they're just going to do some kind of random March to WrestleMania type of special event, house show bullshit. But I don't know.
Maybe they decide to do the Hall of Fame during the day.
Yeah.
On Saturday instead of in the evening.
That'd be weird.
It would be weird, but it means people will be awake during it. Maybe not leave halfway through.
And it would force people to stick to time restraints.
And you might not get as many crazy people in the crowd.
Yeah.
No. Hopefully they don't have that same kind of stage setup too. So
Yeah, that's probably a mistake.
I don't know, but I mean, we have no information about what that random Saturday is going to be, and there is a chance that maybe they do switch TakeOver and they just change their mind and plans change, pal, or whatever. I would doubt that that's the case, but I don't know. And then if you've got plans for something like that and you want to make it the 30th TakeOver and it's a big deal, maybe that's where the Ciampa Cole match happens, or maybe Ciampa versus Gargano versus Cole, or I don't know. For the first time in a while, I feel so confused about the direction of NXT right now that I don't have any idea where I can really project anything. Because I don't feel comfortable in Baszler versus LeRae being a guaranteed match at War Games. I have no idea what the War Games matches are going to be. No idea who the next challenger is going to be for Cole. Like, I thought the Undisputed Era were going to win all these titles tonight. They didn't, and now it's just sort of like, okay, what? You know, like...
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But
not.
that's fun. That's the fun of it, though. Like, I enjoy not knowing. Okay, so it's pretty clear that, Brock Lesnar's going to win, and Brock Lesnar will be champion through WrestleMania again. I enjoy not knowing.
Yeah, it's like I don't go along the lines. Part of the reason why I wasn't maybe looking as forward to the show as I thought I would be was the fact that I thought it was predictable that Undisputed Era would just win all the titles and then that would be an end of it. But the fact that they didn't, and it wasn't in a disappointing way that didn't happen, means that I'm happy coming out of this show. And even if I don't know what it's going to be going forward, I built up enough goodwill and faith with NXT that I trust that it will go in a direction that I can get on board with.
I still just end up being nervous because I'm like, man, that FS1 thing. I'm wondering if this got, like, the plan was supposed to be the Undisputed Era, and they got some weird things happening with that deal, and that they had to change things around, and I'm worried. But I can trust NXT more than I can the main roster to a certain extent. And I liked this event. It wasn't my favorite. It's not going to go down as my best event of the year. But overall, thumbs up for sure. I didn't dislike anything about this card, really. So
that main event's going on my very long list, admittedly, but it's going on that list of matches I think people should go out of their way and watch, because it became an action movie, and that's fun, and this was fun, and I can't stress it enough. It's no wrestling brand has been fun outside of the G1, and watching this was like, oh yeah, this is why I'm actually a fan.
Yeah, I thought this was there's no flaws in this show, apart from maybe the bad crowd and stuff along those lines. But other than that, I think every match did really well. It probably won't go down as like my top show of the year, but it's definitely a show that I would be happy to watch again at a later date and enjoy all the way through.
Real quick, did you guys have fucking network problems? The network was very annoying for me tonight, and I don't like this new network. It cut out a lot during the show.
I actually didn't, but I was just using it on like the internet and stuff. Were you using it on like PlayStation or something?
Yeah, and it was cutting out a lot, and it really was annoying. I'm almost like, okay, why'd you change the format? I get Flash was dying, but at least that was working, you know?
It stalled a little bit in the main event, but nothing too major. I just thought that was my internet like going in and out of reliability more than anything else. I think other than that, it functioned reasonably well.
I guess we'll see how SummerSlam works out. If that ends up being lots of problems, then they've got some issues, yeah. But I think that's about it. So if you want to chime in with your thoughts on what we think, what you think, or anything else you want to toss out your opinions about, do that in the comment section below, and pay attention to all the other kind of plugs that I had mentioned earlier, as well as more things coming from the Smark Out Moment side and from all of our other projects that we have going on. And I'm just going to pass the baton over to Rob.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. You can check out the things I have going on at WrestleZone with the WrestleZone Daily, Monday through Thursday on their Facebook page. You can check out eWrestling News, The Ring Report, and Fightful, as I'll be starting there this week. So, yay. Cal?
You can check out 2001: A Wrestling Odyssey, which is the series where me and Rob go back in time to the year 2001. Check out all the news and events that are taking place every single month throughout that year. So if you're a fan of Retro Podcast, just go back on the Small Cat Moment channel, find every episode. Got January, February, March, April, May, June, and July already in the book. The August one will come out later this month, and obviously a special on WrestleMania X7 as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Weekmeister14 and check out the weekly articles, including the Power Rankings, which is the one that I contribute.
All right, everybody. I got some stuff on EWN. I got some stuff on BR. I got some stuff to my left, to my right, up and down, all around. And yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that, but thank you for listening.
And you turn yourself around.
I fucking hate that song. It's so stupid. I hate it so much. Although, I don't know what's worse, that or the chicken dance. If you know, drop a comment below. Donate to the Patreon. There you go. We've got SummerSlam coming up tomorrow night. That is another one of those things. I think it's like diagonal left. And we will be doing a post show for that one, so stay tuned for that and the live coverage on smarkoutmoment.com and everything else that's happening with all the breakdowns and reviews and all that stuff. That's it for this edition. Thank you for listening to this Pay-Per-Viewpoint. It's been another Smart Out moment, and we're being counted out.